Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Coaching Done Well with myself, Shane Leaning in Shanghai, China, and my brilliant co-host, Jim Thompson. Jim Thompson, where are you in the world at the minute?
Well, we're in the freezeroo called upstate New York. We've often remarked that we have two seasons, 4th of July and winter. And we are in the depths of what my father would say an old-fashioned winter. A lot of snow this year. We'll get over 100 inches. And Saturday, they're predicting the wind chill factor to be minus 25 below zero. So it's cold outside, but inside, and this conversation, it's warm because we have the man. We have the Jim Knight, who's inspired me, inspired you, Shane, inspired us all with this legacy of partnership coaching. So we're darn thrilled to have him.
We are really super thrilled to have you, Jim. And we actually, just before we were coming online, we were all having a bit of a discussion and we could have kept going and even forgotten to press record. But luckily, we managed to remember we were going live now and we've got so many people joining us online. So welcome if you are. I can see you in that room. So if you're there, say hi in the chat. It would be lovely. But Jim Knight, how are you doing? Would you tell us what are you up to in a minute and what's happening for you?
Oh, things are good. It's great to be here. And Jim Thompson, I always say he's the happiest person on the internet, which is getting easier and easier to do, I must admit these days. But it's great to have you, see you, Jim. Great to see you, Shane. Now I'm going to be in Shanghai in May, so I'm hoping I get to see you when I'm there. So I'm looking forward to reconnect. We had a great little visit last time, and looking forward to coming
Yes.
back. In some ways, I just can't believe it, but it's happening.
It's gonna be awesome. You're certainly traveling around a little bit at the minute, Jim. For people following online, you've been climbing mountains recently, figuratively and in the real world.
Well, with respect to our work, our company, the Instructional Coaching Group, is a B Corp, which is a it means you're a certified force for good. You have to go through a really rigorous assessment to show that the B stands for benefit. You're doing so. Patagonia is kind of the quintessential B Corp, and I think we're the only educational coaching one. I'm not sure. We were the first, at any rate. And so our mission is student success every day, every student, every class, everywhere. So everywhere is everywhere. So we're trying to spread the word and find more places to have an impact. And because of our partnership with Growth Coaching, we spend a lot of time in Southeast Asia. So it's a pleasure to go there. Shanghai was wonderful the first visit. I'm thrilled I get to come back. It's such an interesting place. And we're doing an institute or a 2 day session in Singapore around that time too, and some stuff in Australia. So it's pretty fun to get over to these places and see what we're doing.
Absolutely. And would love to unpack that a little bit later in the episode just to kind of dig into some of those institutes because I know we've got an international audience tuning in from around the world. So if you are tuning in, maybe you're tuning in on the recording. If so, welcome. It's lovely, lovely to have you tuning in. But did you know this also goes out live? Because we have got plenty of people with us live currently on Riverside, but also on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, it is really, really wonderful to have you here. I'm gonna type a message in the chat on LinkedIn and just say hi. And I'd love you to say hi back and just so we get to know who you are and where you're coming in from. As we go through this chat, we're going to have a bit of a informal discussion together as we usually do, and hopefully we can bring you into the conversation. So if you've got any questions, reflections, thoughts, bring them in. You're part of this conversation too. Jim Thompson, how about I hand this over to you?
Well, thank you. Just I'm tickled pink to have Jim Knight with us this wonderful day. I got a couple questions depending on our time to try to share with you, Jim, and see what's on your mind with him. And here's the first one, Jim. First of all, heartfelt and deep thanks for being with us on our Coaching Done Well episode. And the whole idea of Coaching Done Well came from your inspiration, my friend. Your work, you're truly being a witness to the good on behalf of advancing student success and well-being. Jim, it was back about 10 years ago. I was teaching at Roberts Wesleyan College, and a colleague shared high impact instruction with me. Yogi Berra said, "When you come to a fork in the road, take it." And I instantly became a Jim Knight fan. Jim, you've spent decades hip deep with this notion of coaching done well, and we are also very thankful for that. And one of the many folks you introduced me to was Dr. Atu Gwande, who shared the point that coaching done well is perhaps the most effective intervention for human performance. And another one of our friends, Michael Bungay Stanier, shared a new question with us recently. And the new question to ponder is, what do you know to be true? In Dr. Gwande's book, Better, A Surgeon's Notes on Performance, he intentionally names the first chapter on washing hands, which evokes a key idea on what he knows to be true. So, Jim, our first question with you, with regards to the ideas and ideals of coaching done well, what do you know to be true?
Hmm. I think that uh, it's dangerous to think you know things are true. I think that's. I think it's really important to, as John Campbell says, hold your truth lightly. So I think you build a sense of things, but I feel I'm more tentative about things that I think they're true. So I'm hesitant. I mean, what's true there are a lot of things that are true for me about my faith and the way I approach life and how I feel about other people. So what's true for me might not be true for my conversation partner. And so when I sit down with a teacher, I say, look, I've got some things to share. You know better than me what your kids would like. You know better than me what your strengths are and how to exploit them. Let me share them and you tell me what you think. So I would say a truth for me is probably that you have to be careful about using that word. I think that it's more important when it comes to something like coaching or even any kind of relationship to respect the capacity of the other person to make their own truths rather than for me to impose my truths on them. I don't know. I don't know if that's the best answer, but that's what came to mind. The idea that I have it all figured out and I'm going to tell you really worries me a bit. Now, I can see how Michael would use it in a coaching conversation with someone where we could ask that question and ask that of another person and they'll tell us their truth. I can see how powerful that could be. But for me, I don't know, for my truth, I would say what's true for me is if we want professionals teaching our schools, we need to treat them like professionals. And to get the schools we want, we need professionals. To me, that's the truth. To treat teachers like their job is like doing the drive-through at McDonald's and they're unskilled laborers and we're going to give them a script and they have to follow it exactly. I think that's not seeing teachers as professionals and that would be true for me. But at the same time, I don't know every culture in the world. I don't know, when I work with a tool and he was doing a study in India, one of the things he learned was the culture there, the way they respond to partnership was a little bit different with the group that he worked with because of the caste system kind of changed the way it was compared to North America. So yeah, I'd say hold your truth slightly. That would be my truth.
I like that. I remember as a social studies teacher sharing with my students the words of H.L. Mencken. He said, there are simple answers to complex questions and they're wrong. So I appreciate it. Let me just put in one more question to have you reflect on, then we'll shoot it to Shane for what's on his mind with it about this. Jim, about 10 years ago, I believe you wrote a real important book, Better Conversations, coaching ourselves and each other to be more credible, caring, and connected. And you quoted Margaret Wheatley with her words, I believe we can change the world if we start listening to one another again. Simple, honest human conversations. And you also cited Brene Brown saying, the connection is why we're here. We're hardwired to connect with others. It's what gives us purpose and meaning to our lives. And without it, there is suffering. And you wrote this powerful point. Our schools are only as good as the conversations within this. Jim, as you wrote back in 2016, the importance of better conversations is central to our work. But we work in the midst of much radical brokenness. And while we wish and we hope and we strive for better conversations, conversations break down. What are some reasons our conversations break down, and how best should we respond to move the needle toward more real connection?
Well, I think they break down for all kinds of reasons. There's no doubt that loneliness is a global problem. There's a Ministry of Loneliness in the UK, or at least there was for a while. And Vivek Murthy's book, Together, he documents how around the world, study after study shows that we have a kind of a crisis of loneliness. I think, we're at the mercy of our phones. Phones are one reason why we had never had more ways to connect, never been less connected. That would be one thing. I think, I think the trouble with the phones too is they're designed to capture our attention and also stir up our fear. And so a lot of us are polarized because of the algorithms that keep us frightened, and so you just do a little test. If you still go on Twitter, after you go on Twitter, ask yourself, am I happier now than I was before I got on this thing? Chances are you won't. And then people are really busy now, and again, our phones mean that we're working 24 hours a day. The phone can send us an email at any time, and that can remind us of stuff. We don't have these boundaries around our life, and I'm sure there are other reasons, but for sure, technology isn't as helping us as much as it could with respect to communication. And when I was on this trip in Nepal in November with Christian, I had 3 weeks where I turned off my phone except to put pictures on Instagram. And I used Marco Polo to communicate with my family. But other than that, I didn't do anything. And I experienced external silence, but I experienced because we were away from motors and we were just in a trail. And I experienced internal silence. I wasn't worried about what was the next major project that had to be done, or how well was this course doing, or all the things, or what was the interpersonal conflict we were dealing with, or all the things that show up in your email. I didn't have to deal with them. And when I had space to think, silence, it took about 90 minutes for that to feel good, and to do it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks really opened things up. So I think our phones. So what can we do? If I was to say it in my opinion, this is just my experience. What I'm trying to do is trying to be okay. So we'll go back to Nepal to give you an example. We had guides, and I had a guide. His name was Dawa Sherpa, and I'm like, I'm not a spring chicken, so I'm 70. I'm overweight. I'm trying to hike 10 miles, 12 miles a day at 4,000 meters. It was not easy. So Dawa watched me like a hawk, and I watched him for 3 weeks. There was never a moment when there was an opportunity for him to be of service to other people that he wouldn't do it. So in the tea houses, he would help them serve the food. If he saw somebody taking their backpack off, he would help them take it off. He just leapt into service whenever he saw the person. So I think coming to the world from a place of benevolence and grace towards another person, I think the more you're concerned with yourself and fear and anxiety and pride and all those things which are inevitably a part of being a human, the less you're capable of connecting. The more you look at the other person, when you engage your will for the good of the other person, the better the opportunities are for conversation. That's the way I see it. So I think, after I watched Dawa, I've tried to do that imperfectly, without question, but I'll just see little things like s- taking the trash out. Oh, the trash has to go out. Maybe I should do that. Things like I might have blown off before. And I think that attitude of service, recognizing nobody's perfect, to treat yourself with the same grace you show other people, you do your best. But I think one thing at least that I think is helpful is to come from a place of benevolence, a place of service, place of love, I guess is what I would say.
Powerful stuff. Shane, what's on your mind so far with this great conversation?
There's a lot of really, really great stuff there. Yeah, a few things on my mind. Before I share my ideas, I just want to welcome the people who are coming in live, because we've got so many of people joining us. Some wonderful regulars. We've got Jason Booton's in the house. He ran home to attend. We can all picture that. He's loving this on Personal Truths. We've got Jamie Lee. Welcome. We've got Todd. Great to have you here. Regular Ruth is here, which is wonderful to see you here, Ruth. And we've got Laura again. That's great. So many good people already. Some people reflecting on the struggles, that, and relating to what you've just said. I think some of the things that came to me, I loved the idea. What do you know to be true? Well, most things are tentative. I think that's really interesting. And yet it brings me to this tension I feel in education, where as as teachers or as teacher educators, we are still so drawn to the objective truth. Like, this works. This is a technique that works, or this is works. So how do we hold things tentatively, but then have this standard shared practice of things that we agree to be good practice in our work? I wonder if you have any thoughts on that, Jim.
Yeah, I do. I think I'm writing a book with Brian Goodwin, who's essentially the new Bob Marzano. He took over Grell on his book, The New Classroom Instruction That Works, which, looks at the science of learning and the science of teaching. And we say, bringing it together with the emergent science of coaching. And John Hattie and I have had many, many conversations. And John and I have talked a lot about writing a book about coaching, and that's probably going to happen too. So I believe in evidence. But I think the notion that something that was studied in high SES small group of students in 1992 proves what I should do in my class is silly. To me, what matters is local validity. Yeah, the studies that have been done help us identify things, but does it work with my students, and does it have results? So we would say a critical thing for coaching or for change is to establish student focused goals. What's the change we want to see in students? And then how do we have to modify this strategy to make it work? In our experience, this is our 30th year doing research on instructional coaching. In our experience, it's very rare you can take a thing off the shelf and have it work exactly the way you want it to. Take cold calling, which people love to talk about cold calling. Well, you could have neurodiverse kids in your class for whom cold calling would send them round the bend. So cold calling might work in one class with one group of students, but it probably has to be adapted to work in another place. And so I would say the measure of success is did things change for your students? And you're almost always, this is the point of the impact cycle, you're almost always going to have to modify it. So setting that student focused goal, to me, the measure of success is not the 10 things on a checklist. The measure of success is, did the kids learn more, or did they get more engaged, or did their well-being go up in unmistakably clear ways? And if there's no change in kids, it didn't work. And if you're not measuring whether or not kids are changing, you don't know if it's working. In fact, there's probably a good chance it's not working. So to me, evidence of effective practices is important. It highlights for us things we need to look at, but you draw from that body of research in order to work with this particular group of students, and it's going to have to change to make it work. It's that whole idea of Ron Heifetz that Jim and I have talked about, that there's technical challenges and adaptive challenges. Adaptive challenges require adaptive responses. A recipe works when you're trying to change your tire or when you're trying to bake a cake, but a recipe doesn't work when you have 30 kids, all with their own individual lives. You have to make experiments, you have to try things out. So to measure whether or not it's working, you need the student focused goal. That's how we would say it.
Yeah, and I even reckon with the baking analogy, it doesn't even always work there. I mean, recently, to share my struggle, Jim, I've been really struggling. Like, I'm going to just put it out there. I've been really struggling to fry eggs recently. Like, this is confessional. Like, I really, because we have had a new cooker with a high heat, and we've got stainless steel pan, which I've never used before. And now all of a sudden I feel an absolute novice in frying an egg. My tried and tested techniques are not working. So yeah, even with the cooking, I would say it's not just about following the recipe.
Well, there you go.
Jim, let me talk to you. Something that's real, the crazy ant in the attic in my mind right now, being 76 years old, it's AI. I just read that AI powered searches are expected to appear in more than 75% of all internet searches by 2028. And so I'm going to come right out with it. What do you see is the promise and the perils of AI? And here's the crazy ant in the attic question, Jim. Do you see AI replacing coaching?
Yeah, you won't be surprised to hear me say no, I don't. But I wrote an article about this, and I think the title was "Will AI Replace Coaching?" I wrote it for Journal of Staff Development. Um, right now, uh, we don't know where AI is going to go. I mean, most people say it's about where the internet was in 1996. So, you think back, that's when we were using AOL and modems and all that stuff. So where it's going to go is hard to say. But right now, to me, AI is like a vending machine for ideas. It'll give you suggestions, but it doesn't deal with that adaptive part of modifying what happens. You need a human being, and also the things it's going to suggest could be made up. There's a thing called technocentrism. Well, there's an old joke that I'm sure you've heard, but there's a drunk. He comes home, he loses his keys, and he's looking for his keys under the light. And this police officer shows up. There's a street light, and he's under the street light, looking on his hands and knees, looking for the keys. The officer says, he said, "Are you sure you lost your keys here?" And the drunk says, "No, I actually lost them over there, but the light's better here." And an AI is a bit like that. Just because it suggests it doesn't mean it's necessarily the right thing. So technocentrism is the idea that an AI is going to be identify the things it can identify. So if you look at teacher talk versus student talk, you can analyze the kind of questions, but they might not be the real issues. So you need a human being to use the AI as a tool. If you look at the impact cycle, AI can give you some insight into what's happening in reality. AI can help you set goals so long as you guide it, and it may not really help you as well as you'd like. You have to give it guidance, and sometimes it doesn't listen. And it could suggest strategies, but the strategies may or may not be that helpful. Then in the learning stage, it can help you generate checklists, but you may need to modify checklists. It could really be helpful in terms of identifying strategies, like modeling of strategies. So you could say, "Can you show me a video of a middle school math teacher teaching kids how to use think, pair, share?" There's a good chance you'll find something. But when it gets into the adaptation phase, you can go there for ideas, but you still need a human being. I'll say one more thing is that you ever heard of this thing, Shane and Jim, called the what's it called? Fast Friends Protocol. They sometimes call it 36 questions to fall in love. You ask the person these 36 questions, you're supposed to be in love at the end of the conversation, or at least be much closer. So I tried it with AI. I want to see what happens if I do this. So within the eighth question, I thought, this is ridiculous. This is like trying to fall in love with a calculator. This is not, it's just making stuff up. And so the human element was completely missing. But the most important thing is that idea of adaptive versus technical solutions. AI provides technical solutions for an adaptive challenge. And Heifetz, who I mentioned before, he said the greatest mistake a leader can make is to use technical solutions for adaptive challenges. You need the human being for the adaptive challenges. AI is not there yet. Maybe in 10 years, it's possible. Who knows what's possible in 10 years? I have no idea. But right now, it's dangerous too, because the idea that you can put some machine in the back of the room that's going to do an evaluation of the teacher without any kind of human element in the conversation, to me, that's we're going to lose great teachers, because the human element when it comes to change is absolutely.
Leads me to this
Can I
one more
ask? Can I
question,
come in?
and then I want Shane to jump in here. This is just I think it's going to connect, but I want you to reflect, Jim, and then Shane. Writing in the forward of the coaching with purpose, and you've had the authors on your show, and I know them. They've showcased some of our work, which we're appreciative of. You say this in the forward. You said coaching, when done well, is a profoundly human endeavor. It's not about imposing solutions, but partnering with others to make sense of challenges, build trust, and create lasting improvement. One of the final questions here, you reflect on, I love then Shane on his mind about this. Could you say a little bit more about that profoundly human endeavor, that we call coaching done well?
Well, there are so many elements to that. First off, I think Jason Boutin is actually in our group, and he's one of the authors of Coaching with Purpose. So we can give a shout out to him. First off, it's that ability to adapt in the circumstance and to recognize you can't take a thing off the shelf and solve the problem. That's one human element. The second part is, I think, really skilled coaches. I was talking about Kate Murphy's new book, Why We Click. They're able to establish a kind of synchrony with the other person that's appropriate for that person. Some people want you to know all about their family and what they're doing. Other people, they'd rather like a little bit of a distance. And then I think, it's a benevolent act to be a coach. And so I think the coach demonstrating empathy, I love the metaphor of my friend John Campbell, who's probably the leading expert in coaching in Australia. He gave me a little plaque and he said, "We're all just walking each other home." I love that idea of having someone walking with you through the process, whatever you're dealing with. Sometimes a coach can just say, "Man, I had a class just like that a few years ago, and I know how you feel." and the person feels validated. They feel seen in ways I don't think any machine's ever going to be able to make you feel seen. You're going to see through it eventually. ChatGPT tells me that's a good question, but it's a machine. So pretty soon I realize it's just an algorithm it's been taught to do. But if I have a person who genuinely has empathy for my situation, helps me think together, then I've got a human. So all the things that go into being a human being in many ways, compassion for the other person, thinking together with the other person. I think those things, I just don't think a machine can replace that just yet. It'd be nice in a way if it could, because you could scale these things, but every time, I've tried using the growth coaching model. I said, can you use the growth coaching questions? And it just doesn't work. It cuts me off in mid sentence. It starts to jump to giving me solutions all the time. I've tried to use Michael Bungay Stanier's questions from the coaching habit. It can't do it. It knows the questions, but pretty quickly. It's just telling me, I think what you should do is this. And it's not coaching. So I think many of the things that human beings are incredibly complex. To think that we have a machine that can do what a human being can do, we're not there yet, despite the amazingness of what chat AI can do. It's not what a human being can do, in my opinion.
Love that answer. Shane, what's on your mind with all this good stuff?
Yeah, I love that. I'm almost thinking, I feel like, as even if AI can get to that point, and I think we said something similar on the show before, even if AI can get to that point where it emulates a human perfectly, there's still something about knowing it is a human talking to you and knowing that that is real empathy or that is kind of real curiosity in you that makes that conversation different to even if the AI was able to follow the growth coaching framework perfectly. I still feel like even if it was a perfect emulation, if you knew it was a computer, so unless it was deceiving you, but if you knew it was, surely there would be a different feeling. I don't know if that makes much sense.
Well, I think if it helped me solve my problems, I'd be okay with it, even though you're absolutely right. It's a machine. It's like talking to a calculator. Eventually you see through it. I think, well, I don't know. I haven't fully explored some like human like things like replica, for example, where this person memorizes you and knows your whole life. But I think the bottom line is it helped me solve the problem. And right now, I don't think AI does that. It's a vending machine. It can give me suggestions. But we've found the most important part of coaching, well, I don't know if it's the most important, but a critically important part is what you do after you've set the goal and implemented the strategy. And that's where AI falls down. So it can make suggestions. It can help me think about a goal. It might get better and better about that. But it's that part where, you know, I had these three kids. This is what was happening. Or maybe the coach is in the room watching the students and is able to say, I'm wondering about this. I don't know how a machine can do that. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it isn't possible, but it's not happening right now.
I think something you said, I remember, Jim, in the article you wrote, you went like, will, AI coaches replace coaches? But you said something like, no, but, coaches who use AI will replace coaches who don't. And I like that statement. But then it gets me thinking about there's becoming a divide between people who have got a prerequisite of knowledge, be it using AI, and how empowered they are to use AI to kind of supercharge that base of knowledge that they have. But then you've also got a group of people who are coming into the world, and I'm thinking like young teachers here who are just training and just becoming teachers, and AI is at their feet. Are we at a risk that in kind of the teacher training world that these teachers are much more vulnerable to actually what this AI is telling them about their practice or about their reflections? Because it's one thing to be able to reflect with so many years experience. If you're new, like you've got nothing to go on.
Well, they're also at the mercy of professional development that tells them what to do and
True.
disempowers them. So it's the same thing. I think that those who advocate for AI replacing coaching don't understand coaching. The coaching is, as Sir John Whitmore famously said, unleashing the potential of another person. And we don't have the kind of sophisticated interactions between a bot and a human being that you have between two human beings. Like I said, it's a vending machine for ideas. And if you're if you're a person who doesn't understand coaching, you might think, well, just go there, pick the thing, and then do the thing, and it'll fix your problem. But we know that it's after you've picked the thing and you make the modifications, and it's getting a clear picture of reality, which AI hallucinates. It might tell us something that's not true. Setting a goal, AI may or may not give you a goal. It'll set goals that it can handle and understand, but it might not understand the complexities of the classroom. So to me, the danger of AI is just that you need a human being who has expertise in setting goals and knows what effective instruction looks like, who can mediate and say, I'm not so sure about this one, or here's this. And instructional coaches have expertise. They understand what effective instruction looks like and what really works in their setting. And they're continually deepening their expertise, not just in terms of reading research articles, but in learning what works in the school. And they understand how to gather data about what's happening in the classroom with respect to engagement and achievement. They have expertise. They just don't act like experts.
Mm.
They work with another. They have professional discourse. So, and the heart of professionalism is using your discretion to make decisions. You bring your knowledge and you say, this is what I think I should do. And if you go in and fix the person and tell them what to do, the bottom line is they're going to become less and less empowered. And every time they have a problem, they're going to come to you to ask you for the solution instead of them learning how to take care of it. Not unlike what can happen in a special ed classroom where the special ed teacher helps the kid do their work, and so they get a passing grade, but the kids aren't learning how to learn. You know, that the Mike Hoke at the University of Kansas studied tutoring, and he said you could see how the tutor during the session would just take the kid's paper, and by the end of the session, it's in front of the special ed teacher. When you're effective in special ed, you're teaching kids how to learn so they can function independently, and when you're effective as a coach, you're recognizing the professional as a professional and then interacting in ways that help them perfect their professionalism blossom. I think that's a machine can't do that. Not yet.
It resonates with this great phrase you shared with us a while back. Two monologues don't equal a dialogue. I'm figuring how you have a dialogical conversation with a bot. I guess that's well, we're winding things up here, and we appreciate your time. But I want to ask one question, then have you talk about it, and Shane wrap things up. One of the questions we ask all our guests for is what do you hope for in this world of many challenges? There's promise. There's ways to make a difference. So, Jim Knight, what do you hope for?
Well, I believe that our interactions with other people are important and life-giving. And I believe that we can set aside our the things that separate us and we can find ways to connect. And I think it's fundamental to a fulfilling life to have loving interactions with other people and positive interactions. And it's hard to think of something more life-giving than a conversation where two people are thinking together and sharing ideas and growing together. And I'm blessed to have friends who make me want to be a better person because of the conversations I have with them, largely because they're selfless. They're loving in their interactions with me. And so what I hope for is that we can keep practicing benevolence and conversations where we can, not that I've got this nailed at all. I'm like a non-example, but I hope for selfishly that I have more of those conversations, but more broadly, that becomes a kind of viral thing, that we really learn how to have conversations that are life-giving for all the people in the conversations, instead of ones where there's one person up and the other person down. I'm going to tell you what to do, and you're going to feel you're not capable, but rather conversations that lift both parties up, kind of things Margaret Wheatley talks about in Turning to One Another. That's what I'm hoping for. I think we can have life-giving conversations, and it's maybe one of the most important things we can do. And it's learning a skill and it's learning a way of being. And I think we can learn those things to help us have more of those conversations. And when we look at the times, it's life-giving conversations. I think that is at least one way of getting us out of this time of anger and polarization and fear. That's what I hope for. More life-giving conversations.
Second that emotion. Shane, what's on your mind as we kind of wrap all this wonderful conversation up?
Well, just to say, I third that. Yeah, more life-giving conversations, and it's funny. There's so many people who train as coaches or choose to kind of integrate coaching in their practice find that they manage to through coaching practices naturally fall into more life-giving conversations as well through those techniques. So I'm so grateful, Jim, for the work that you do bringing these ideas to the world. And we've got a lot of people. I just want to bring in a few comments from people who've joined us online. We've had a lot of people with us. So Ruth talks about it's great to hear the focus on the pupils that you mentioned. She also says she loves that her coach is definitely walking with me. So powerful to make those connections and feel human. A friend of the show, M.A. Skidmore, lovely to see you here, says the wrestling with an issue is the thing. Discernment, tinkering, and reflection is personal. Nicely framed, M.A. That's lovely. Todd says, when I wanted support in my class, AI suggested I should differentiate by learning styles. Eek! So it's being quite directive and maybe pointing you to things that the evidence is not so clear on. Jamie Lee, you make a great comment saying, I'm curious to hear more about the basis of introducing a coaching culture into the school for the first time. I wonder, Jim, we maybe another time we can kind of have a talk about that. Like that would be a good place for a whole episode. And of course, Jason is with us as well. I can see you typing away, Jason. You're there. You've got put lots of professional learning through coaching. AI is great at providing a collection of ideas. Human beings are the ones that select the ideas that are useful and purposeful to them. And he says, life worthy learning. Very, very big claps. So thank you so much for everyone who's joining in. Isn't it wonderful to have this community who join us each time to have these conversations? Jim Thompson, I wonder what are your reflections as we come towards a close today?
Well, Jim Knight has introduced me to the Heath brothers. Before Jim Knight, I didn't know about these Heath brothers. I just thought the Heath bar when I was a kid, it was a candy bar. But they wrote this wonderful book called The Power of Moments. And I think as I grow older, I said I try to be more intentional in capturing these moments and nourishing them and making the most of them. And what a group of powerful moments this conversation has been with us and for us. We try to emulate the show Cheers on this on Coaching Done Well, that everybody knows your name and everybody's glad you came. And this was our cheers this morning. And we know each other well, and we're so glad you came, Jim Knight. We're so glad you came, and we thank you so much for the difference that you make. That poem by Emerson about success, that you do make the world a better place because of what you do and who you are. So we hope our paths cross again. We can't thank you enough.
Hey, I'm always happy to be here. I'm trying to figure out who I'd be. Hopefully not Frasier. I'd like to be Norm, but I'm not sure which one I would be. Maybe Coach. I don't know. I'm kind of his age. Maybe the bartender. I don't know. That's a tough call, but I'll come anytime. I love our conversations. I'm grateful for the chance to throw some ideas around. I'm so impressed by what both of you are doing. I can learn so much from what you're doing, and you're doing a fantastic job. So I'm truly grateful to be here.
Well, to close, maybe Jim, could you just tell us where are you going to be around the world recently? Because we've got people tuning in from around the world who may want to engage with some of your work. So where are you going to be?
Thanks so much for asking. So I'll be in Shanghai in the middle of May, and then I'm going to be in Singapore a little after that, around, I don't know the exact dates, but if you go to growthcoaching.com.au and you click on events, you'll see where they're listed there. Later in the year, I'll be at the Festival of Education. I don't know if you're going to the Festival of Education, Shane, but if you are, we'll have to get together.
Yes.
And right after the festival, we're almost certainly going to be doing an institute in the UK in July. So the festival is I think the first and second of July, something like that. And then the following week, we're going to do it. And then September, we're doing an institute in the Netherlands. And so, and there will be other 2-day sessions across Australia. We do a lot of things in Australia. And then, of course, we always do our institutes in Kansas. So we'll do 3 of those. So if all that's just, holy crap, what was that? You can just email me, Jim at instructionalcoaching.com. And I'll say it again, Jim at instructionalcoaching.com. It's elegant and simplicity. And I'll send it to the right people so you can find out what's happening. So we'd love to Love to see you at one of those events. The events are very cool. It's TLC is the big one too. TLC is our conference is going to be in Dallas in October, but all those events build a sense of community. Coaches are awesome to work with. I mean, they love to learn and they're people. So it's hard to pick a better group to learn with, but we really are intentional about constructing a real community in those events. So it's really just a pleasure to get a chance to be a part of that community.
Thank you so much, Jim, and thanks for, just sharing so generously as well. Yeah, definitely go check that out. I can even remember that, jim@instructionalcoaching.com. That's how you get in touch. That's awesome. Well, I just want to kind of finish up today by just saying a huge a thank you to the two Jims in the room. Of course, this has been amazing, but also to all the other people who have joined us online. If you're joining in online on Riverside or LinkedIn. It is wonderful to have you join. But I also know so many people from around the world can't make it to that exact time. It's 8 p.m. in Shanghai and it's goodness knows what time in the morning over there in the US. So it's not always the best time to tune in. So you might be tuning in the podcast. So Coach and Done Well on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It's wonderful to have you there. But go have a look on LinkedIn, find the Coaching Done Well channel, and you can see when we're going live next. We would love to have you join us. We always try to bring in those comments, and the community means the world to us. We have got an absolute wonderful season ahead, haven't we, Jim? We have just got some incredible guests coming our way.
Well, we just stole from Jim Knight's talent, who he brings to these conferences. We got Kim Richardson and Daryl Mickle coming up. Then we've got Bill Summers and Steve Barkley. And I think for our last show in June, we got the wonderful Sarah Cottingham, Adam Colbeck, and Hallie Hughes showcasing their new book, Coaching for Adaptive Expertise. So, Jim, you just have inspired the dickens out of us with all these good folks.
They are great people, every one of them. So that is a great line.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been just an absolute honor. And wherever you are in the world, I hope you are safe, well, and we will see you on the next episode of Coaching Done Well. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.